Well, very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here on Enterprise Matters. It's Young Enterprise Scotland's first ever venture into LinkedIn Live. We're broadcasting not just across LinkedIn, we're live across Facebook and YouTube today. And as a stalwart Arab Dundee United fan, there only could be one person that we could invite on to our first ever LinkedIn Live, because the three most famous people in my world from Dundee are Billy McKenzie of the Associates, Ralphie Milne with What's Up, Ralphie, legend from Tannadice, and of course Bob Servant, aka Brian Cox. But alongside those three stalwarts, we have Chris van der Kuyl. So we've now got four famous Dundonians. And the same way that Chris took jute jam and journalism and added joysticks in to create 4J Studios, I'm delighted that we've got Chris here this afternoon. So good afternoon, Chris, and thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Jeff. I'm great, and I did I take this off my wall to come into you today, which you can see is the front page of the Sporting Post from the famous day that Dundee United won the league in 82-83 season. You'll notice there's still cellophane on it because my managing director of my property company is a Dundee supporter, so he won't actually let me put it up on the wall. So I'm delighted to have a reason to take it out and show you today.
Excellent. Well, there's no prejudice there. The fact that you actually will have somebody who supports the D as part of your team, so it shows your transparency in that way. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining us today. And the key for today that we're going to try and get from you is three lessons from life that you have learned. We're possibly looking at one. Maybe when you were at St Saviour's in Dundee, forming your T-shirt business with Young Enterprise Scotland. So one from early days, one from your mid-term, and one from the most recent days. You've just had big success, I see, with Parsley Box today, and I know you support that organisation. So let's go back a few years into the early 80s and the halcyon days. What would you take away as a great lesson from those days?
Well, I mean, look, Jeff, Young Enterprise was an absolute life changer for me. I was in fifth year at school. I had, hires underway, everything was going well, and I expected that I was going to go and study computer science. That's what was really, I didn't know going into the year where I was going to end up, but that was my goal. And one of the teachers suggested that, a number of us joined up to build a Young Enterprise company. And in my life, at that point, there was nobody really that was particularly entrepreneurial in a business sense. I was nowhere near kind of small business around me, never mind big business. And going into Young Enterprise at that time, it was almost a thing of, it'll look good on my university application. But very, very quickly, I realised I really enjoyed the structure of, right, we've got to raise money for the business, we've got to decide what the business is. And interestingly, I wasn't the managing director of that business. I think I took on the production role or whatever it was. But starting to understand the process, getting access to people that were already in business. In our case, there was a supermarket chain headquartered in Dundee at the time called William Lowe that ultimately sold to Tesco. But one of the senior marketing managers from William Lowe was our mentor through that process. And meeting that person, realising they were just like us, the business, this amazing business that they'd grown, was staffed by people who were pretty normal and, definitely as you could see them as peers. Although they were in their career, there was nothing magical about it, and it mystified it really, really quickly. So my first kind of lesson was I went into Young Enterprise thinking, well, I'm going to end up as a computer programmer somewhere probably, or working in creative industries. But starting a business was not on, really on the radar for me until I went through that experience. And coming out the back of it, taught me a whole variety of things, including the resilience point. Almost every Young Enterprise company that I've ever seen, especially ones that are successful, hit a point in their development where everything goes wrong. Where people start leaving, they lack interest in it, or they all fight with each other, whatever it is, and there's some kind of restructure and maybe a hostile takeover by part of the team. And the team that ends the project is probably not exactly the same team that started it. And that's not a disaster. That's just, it happens sometimes. And learning that, because when it happened, we thought, oh goodness, this is it, it's done. We'll never, do anything back of this. But we reformed, put the right people around it, and cracked on. And additionally, this was not the Scottish champion winning Young Enterprise Company of the Year. I don't believe we didn't even win the regional competition. Didn't matter. Those things are really cool and great to have, and a bit of a goal to do it. But actually what we realised was we were creating this enterprise because we enjoyed creating it, and it didn't matter exactly how we compared to other people as long as we were doing our best at doing it. And so what's the key takeaway for me from that period of time? Well, other than make sure if you get the chance, go and do the Young Enterprise programme. That's a big one, because if I hadn't, I don't know whether I'd be here speaking to you today. So overall, I would say that was that was a very direct lesson, but really the core lesson is no matter what it is you want to go into, whether it's business or if it's something that's not in your experience or you don't have a reference point within your family or friends, don't worry about that. That doesn't mean you can't do it. Just go and find people that have done it and meet them, and suddenly they will be lifted. And in today's world, with Teams and Zoom and all sorts of other technology, it's quite amazing who you can get a virtual cup of coffee with if you try.
And you've been quite vociferous about that over the course of your career, and the value that you've placed on being able to have a conversation with Sir Tom Hunter or Angus Grossart and people like that during the early days of your business life through the entrepreneurial exchange and other avenues. I mean, that maybe takes us into that period of your life. Although I don't want to forget, and people should know that, Chris was a musician. Chris was a keyboard player. And I liked a little bit that said that when you were signed, just about to sign with CBS, I think it was, and I think somebody took over CBS. Was it Sony took over CBS? And that was your first time that you witnessed the implication of a takeover, and your band didn't get signed at that stage. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, whether the A&R guy was trying to be nice to us at the time, but it was quite, or not so nice, but it was quite a competitive environment, obviously, and we got through to the stage where they were really ready to offer terms, and a manager had said to us, right, expect to have to go and shift to London for a while and do some demos with them, and you're right on the verge. And then the message came back post the Sony takeover, and the excuse that they used, which is brilliant, I'll remember it to this day, was we've already got a band with Blue in the title from Scotland, and they're doing pretty well just now, so we don't think there's room for two. Ricky, Lorraine, and Dougie, I've hated them ever since. No, absolutely not. To be even mentioned in the same breath for us as Big Blue 72 or at the times Deacon Blue was amazing. But it was kind of that thing of, it's not in our control. We're here and we're at the behest of somebody somewhere in a corporate office that's never heard of us, doesn't know if we're going to be any good, and has kind of made the decision for us. And Paddy Burns, my best friend, he was the bass player in the band at the time. We'd met when we were 11 at school. So by this time we were just at university. It both took us on a track to make a decision then to say, right, let's just get on with our lives. Let's not worry about that. Well, let's still play music and be part of great bands and enjoy that. But let's try and be masters of our own destiny from here on in. And that sort of took us on the path. We've continued on till today.
And I see Graham Easton's got in touch there. What was the band? Chris said Big Blue 72 was the name of the band. So there you go. And I suppose if we're in that next phase of life where you're starting your first business and starting to take that, what sort of lessons are key for you round about that phase in life or the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, well, so, I've said this a number of times. I came out of university having interned at NCR, and had exposure to sort of corporate world. I was incredibly fortunate that they sent me off to Silicon Valley in 1989 when I was 19 years old. Suddenly turned off the plane, and kind of dropped into what seemed like nirvana. completely weird saying this today because it's far, far more normal, but 31 or 32 years ago, going into a coffee shop and everybody was talking about technology was something amazing to me. But I had a couple of realizations. Number one, whether it was the right or wrong decision, I kind of decided that nobody I met when I was on that trip specifically was any better than the people at university with me, the people I was working with at NCR, people like Paddy. I thought, we're as technically gifted, in fact, creatively, I'd say more gifted. So if they can do it here, we can do it in Scotland. Would it have all happened faster over there? I don't know, but certainly that was a defining moment for me. And then the second part of that was really coming out of that amazing period of time while I was at university, realizing that I was unemployable by a normal company. I couldn't sit on my hands. I couldn't be that junior programmer waiting to climb the corporate ladder. I knew I was going to get myself in trouble really quickly by just, not sitting within the bounds they expected of me, and probably quite correctly, saying, look, you're not quite ready for that yet. But I was a little bit, I suppose, as I'm still today, a bit irrepressible and just wanted to crack on. So made the maybe slightly rash decision to come out the back of university and set the company up immediately with a bit of help from PSYBT, as it was at the time, Prince's Scottish Business Trust. Ultimately you follow the gestation of that organisation at Scottish Edge today. Evelyn MacDonald and the team, they did amazing work there. Lots of alumni, around the world, or around the ecosystem came from that.
Yeah.
And actually, at the time, and it's sort of coming back around in the fashion, an enterprise allowance scheme. So for young people or people who were either come out of the employment market to try and start a business, it was a kind of no strings bit of cash to just pay the bill, or at least to let you get a couple of pints for the weekend. And that was transformational. That gave me the latitude to just go and try starting a business and see what happened. And I was fortunate enough that it started to about the right time, a couple of years before the internet started, and off we went. I think the key lesson from that time, and you alluded to it, around building a network and starting to meet people who you might think are your business heroes, or people that have trodden the path before you and are so far down the line they're inaccessible. I found that none of them were inaccessible. In my view, and it's only a personally held view, there was no old school tie or you had to come from the right background. People were delighted if you picked up the phone to them and said, look, I'm this little guy in Dundee trying to build a technology business. I've never done anything like this before. What do I do? And that led me to relationships with people like Peter Bailey, the founder of Bailey Marshall, Balbrigg Group, who acquired their first business and then left that business to become our chief operating officer, when with the help of Ian Ritchie, we then went in. Ian actually gave me advice on initially how to do a deal with Peter, because I had no idea how to sell a business or why I would sell a business or what to ask for or expect. He then joined as a non-exec chair and helped us go out to the venture capital industry at that point. Pretty nascent in Scotland. Hazel Callan at 3i, Callum Patterson at SEP, were people who saw the potential in what we were doing. And I suppose the key point there, I would suggest, was that I didn't know really what I was doing, but I surrounded myself with people who did and took their advice and said, look, can I do this? And I went, yeah, of course you can. Just go and read this for a while, or just go and meet these people and learn about, from their experiences, what venture capital means, what you need to do. And people talk about faking it before you make it. I don't think it's about that. I don't think you ever fake it. I think you absolutely recognise and be self-reflective enough to know, I don't really know what's going on here. Is this something that I need to bring other people in who do know it, or is it something I can learn quite quickly? And that period of time for me is absolutely, exemplified. The life lesson there is just go and ask. Just go and learn enough to get through your next 6 months and be looking, towards the next 6 months before, things get on top of you, and just keep surrounding yourself with people that have been there before you, either inside the company or advising the company. And I will briefly, the one comment that got flashed up there, I did this after graduation, so I did have my parachute. My parachute was a computer science degree in my back pocket. and fingers crossed somebody would actually employ me if the business didn't turn out okay. But
Yeah.
I think that probably talks about that period for me, Jeff.
I think that question was from John Schmidt. I think he's, if memory serves me correct, he's Curry High School, but he's passionate about enterprise and entrepreneurship in education and giving young people a chance. And I think having that parachute behind you is always something. The bigger the parachute you can have, it gives you more confidence to go on and take that measured risk. I think, which is very, very strong.
Yeah. Sorry, Jeff, on you go.
And I just think that bit you said around about building the network, Chris, is so important. And back to you there just now.
Yeah, I was just going to say the plan B thing is really is clearly very important for everybody because it helps you take the right risks. Look, if it all goes wrong, I know I've got some kind of path out of this. Some entrepreneurs actually, I think, are driven by the fact that even internally, they want to believe there is no other option to stop them taking the easy way out. I often reflect, my timing was good for me because I had nothing to worry about in terms of I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have a family. I was literally out of university, able to stay with my mum and dad, and use. My mum and dad actually ended up buying a slightly bigger house, and I rented out one room to use as my office for a while.
Yeah.
So it was a good soft path that if it all went wrong at that point, also the amount of money involved was pretty low. So what was the worst that was going to happen? I would have to take a job to pay some of that off. And I do have enormous admiration for people that decide to go down the entrepreneurial route later in their career. And in my view, sometimes take what feel to be really, really far more substantial risks. But in a way, it's all relative. I think you can take the risk at any point as long as you think through the implications and considerations. And normally, nothing's ever eternal in that respect. Nothing's ever, if it doesn't work out, that's me stuff. That's a state of mind. Generally, if it doesn't work out, you'll work your way around it, retool and go again. As long as you've got good values, you treat everybody with respect around you, people can see that you tried everything possible. You used, practical experience and intelligence to kind of deal, and then some things didn't go wrong. Absolutely find out at that point that people will more than happily. Oh, I think we've dropped out.
You're back in the room.
Back, sorry, apologies for that. You'll find that the people that backed you the first time, if they've got experience of entrepreneurial journeys, will just be saying, look, great, you've now learned from that experience, next? How does it develop from here? And that's certainly been my experience through my entrepreneurial journey.
Well, risk is a wonderful world, a wonderful word. It's only 4 letters, but if we all sat and didn't take risk of some description, we would never be here. And I'm just thinking of the risks we've taken of doing this today. You can't really do a dummy run on a LinkedIn Live. We've just gone for it. We're learning by doing, and you pick up if things don't work. And somebody who I know you've met, you've had dinner with us, is Peter Proud from Forit, who's building a wonderful business down in Edinburgh out of Microsoft. He said to me yesterday, you don't need a lot of money, you need smart people, and you need lots and lots of passion. And it's never about the money in the first instance. It's about that passion, and it's about having the right people round about you.
Jeff, you must be some kind of mind reader, because the reason I dropped off the call there was my phone tried to talk to my my iPad and it froze you all, and the reason was because Peter Proud tried to ring me, because so he's clearly not on the LinkedIn Live.
Here. That's great. I will have words with him later on about not taking time to watch.
But I have now completely switched my phone off, so we shouldn't get interrupted again.
We shouldn't get interrupted. And anyway, if we fast forward to where we are today-ish, and I give you a bit of space to play around today. You can go back as far as you want, but keeping it recent. What's with Chris van der Kuyl now? What lessons are you still learning now that you're approaching your 40th birthday, Chris?
Thanks, Jeff. I've got a wee delay as well, so if I take a little bit of time to respond to you, it'll take, that's why. Just like being on a satellite feed from Tannadice at this point. So, look, too many lessons to even cover in the time we've got today. But let me go back to the risk point that you made, and you were talking about being a great one. It's great to hear you say that. I mean, as an entrepreneurial leader, somebody who leads one of the most fantastic organisations we have in Scotland to encourage young people to get on this journey, it's exactly what I want to hear. Because the most important skill of an entrepreneur is taking risk. And it's taking risk without, generally, if you're really skilled at it, without it being an existential threat, making sure that if you manage the risk, so that if it all goes wrong or you can see it going wrong, you can course correct and you'll still be here the next day as a business or in whatever venture you've taken forward. And when I hear about people risk managing to the extent that there is no risk, I just know that's a business or an organisation I don't want to go near, because there is no development, there's no progression, there's no success without risk. And I did learn that quite a long time ago, but I hope I've learned, as things go forward, a bit better, techniques of risk management, how to make sure that it's not all or nothing, and really just constantly learning from everybody around me. You mentioned today the business that I'm really proud to be the chairman of, Parsley Box, announced its intention to float on AIM this morning, which is incredible, given it's a 4-year-old business, in what would normally be a really challenging sector to get on with. And the CEO there, Kevin Dorn, is an absolute masterclass in taking measured risk all along the way, never being satisfied. When things really go well, decide what that means and how you can take additional measured risk. And that's how you grow a business of scale, a business that's hopefully going to become one of Scotland's great national success stories as a startup business in the sector that we're in. Just surrounding yourself constantly with talent. And I don't mean having the ability to necessarily hire, or just getting in the orbit of people who have got great talent and great energy rubs off on you no matter what. So even as an entrepreneur, when I was my door was knocked on by your venerable predecessor Lynn Henry, the person that I kind of credit with a lot of really kicking off a lot of Scotland's sort of entrepreneurial renaissance from the ground up. When she asked me to join her board in my 20s, because I was an alumnus of Young Enterprise, I kind of thought, this is a bit strange. Why I've hardly done anything. Why is she asking me to do this? But she kind of knew and understood, and very quickly the opportunity came up and she asked me to be chair. Again, I was under 30 and hadn't, in my view, achieved particularly much. But she said, no, you're exactly the right kind of role model, for this to build on. And you look at that ecosystem that's developed around Young Enterprise Scotland, Sandy Kennedy, Entrepreneurial Scotland, Evelyn McDonald that I mentioned already, running Scottish Edge. We've got world-class people helping the community get together. And the benefit that I get today from being on the Edge Advisory Board or being on an Edge panel or just attending an Edge event and seeing these new businesses coming through and learning from them the minute you meet them. I mean, watching a business like Uni, come and conquer a category that didn't really exist in pizza ovens. Who would have guessed that could be such an amazing, the founders did, the founders knew and believed. And I've learned so much from watching them and their journey, even though it's not a business that we directly are involved in, or it's directly applicable to a lot of the tech that we do. It's fantastic. So being around that energy at any stage in your career, is really what gets you up in the morning and gives you ideas. And you mentioned him earlier, Sir Angus Grossart, the founder and chairman of Noble Grossart, the investment bank in Edinburgh, the merchant bank in Edinburgh, is a perfect example. You can Google his age, so I won't give it away. But at a stage when most people would think this was the time to sit back and enjoy, the everything you've created in your life, he's on it every day, deciding which companies he wants to support and back, working with the next generation, and the energy he brings to any conversation is something that I absolutely admire and aspire to. I think he was once quoted as saying his life's ambition is to die of overwork, not boredom. And it's a kind of funny thing in a way. You think, oh, it's a terrible thing. Actually, it's so true. It's so true as you go on life's journey. Why do something that doesn't get up in the morning? Why do something or commit yourself or say, I'm at a time of life now where I don't really want to do anything anymore? What does that mean? You should get up every day and love what you're doing, whatever that is.
Well, I've been saying to our team at Young Enterprise Scotland, and this is a true fact. So statistically, it sounds a bit morbid, but statistically, I've got least length of time left on the planet of all the team at Young Enterprise Scotland. So I don't want to dilly-dally and waste my time on stuff when I've not got a lot of time to waste. So actually get on, get stuff done, get results, work collaboratively, build that network round about us, and stick. My old chief executive at PSYBT, Mark Strudwick, that you knew, used to say, stick to your knitting and know what you're good at and keep going down that track. And I think that's what will pay dividends for us all as we push forward. And I think as we're approaching that hour of 2 o'clock and we're coming to the close, I've been scribbling down here about the sort of key things for those lessons in life. And one was roundabout in the early stages was about resilience and learning to build that resilience when you were very young in that Young Enterprise Scotland company. And then in the next stage of life, it's been all around about the network, the people round about you, but recognising that nobody is any better than you. You just need to seek out the right people and ask for advice and help and not to be afraid to do that. And then the third one, even as you progress and do great things, Chris, you're still looking at risk. And if there's no risk involved in it, then Chris van der Kuyl doesn't want to be involved in that venture. And I suppose that brings us back to where we started, and the fact that you were probably a shed boy in '83, standing in Tannadice. There are not many people will understand that language, but we as Dundee United supporters, as Arabs, we take a risk every day, So it's just one of life's risks being a Dundee United supporter. Anything you want to add and say?
Well, and I suppose. Yeah, Jeff. A couple of things really on your last point. I suppose we grew up watching, an unbelievable football entrepreneur in Jim McLean take crazy risks that, though people thought he was very measured and doer and all, which in respects he was, he took amazing risks on especially young talent, and look where they got to. Incredible. So that probably sticks in there. But I was reflecting on one last thing I'd want to say to anybody that's out there, thinking about getting on this journey, is you also need to make sure you don't take anything too seriously, and especially in this world of social media. I mean, I kind of, had my business wings and fledged when it was about really just newspapers, and we were built up into something quite special in the eyes of a lot of the local, the media, especially in Scotland, and they in some ways reveled in when we had some challenges really picking us down to size, and people talk about tall poppy syndrome. But I think you have to be resilient to that. You have to say, I don't care what people are saying on social media. There'll always be people who don't like me. Just rise above it and get on with it. And the words that stick with me that then make you reflect on the kind of importance of things and your perceived self-importance were given to me by another great Scottish entrepreneur, travel entrepreneur, John Boyle, who went on to famously be chairman and owner of Motherwell. He was an investor with us, and he said to me, Chris, remember the words my mum said to me when I told her we'd sold our travel business and I was now worth X. She said, aye, John, one day a peacock, the next a feather duster. That's a classic Scottish mum's or granny's phrase to reflect on. And it sort of brings you down to size in the way of, you can be a bit of a peacock, go for it, but don't take it, don't take yourself so seriously that you don't remember it could all disappear the next day, and make sure you treat everybody in the right way around you because of that, and just don't take it too seriously. Get on and enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure as always, and a privilege to spend half an hour with you, Chris. Last time I saw you physically was in a room at just before lockdown in March last year at the David Attenborough dinner, which it's hard to think it's over a year. So hopefully we'll be back in the same place physically sometime soon. But on behalf of everybody that's tuned in, and I know there's lots of people there, on behalf of everybody at Young Enterprise Scotland, and on behalf of everybody across the wider entrepreneurial ecosystem in Scotland, a huge thank you to you for everything that you do to inspire people, to encourage them to take that measured risk, and to give support to other people throughout your network, because you're now starting paying it back as well. So have a super afternoon, Chris, and thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to see you, and thank you to everybody who's come on to listen. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.